Check the description for the following discount codes. Something a little bit different today. I get lots of requests over the month saying, Carl, can we have like a tour of your games room or your sim room or whatever you want to call it, this space that I'm in here. So, and you know, questions about my sound system, my speakers you see in the background and all the different consoles and what have you. So I thought today would be that day. I'm going to grab my GoPro because it's got good stabilization on it. I need stabilization for my speech, so it seems. And I'll take this round and we'll do a little sort of guided tour of the room. One of the things you'll see, we'll start here in the middle actually, one of the things you'll see change position a lot is this little two-seater sofa bed. Depending what I'm doing in here, maybe the position it's in now is sort of pointing towards all my retro consoles and computers over the side here, and if I was to actually be playing some games I would just slide this over here like that. I've got it on like Teflon furniture sliders, I think they're Teflon, which just make it really easy to move around like you can see here. If I was to be you know, maybe using the GameCube, or Katie might be on her Switch on the screen here, then we'd just move it round and have it this way. And then if we've got people around and we're doing some sim racing, then we'd have it spun round this way like that, so that people can sit down, you know, and watch us race. Although it's a bit more awkward these days, since I've got like the motion system and everything's raised up higher, you can't actually see round quite so well. And we end up kind of perched on the arms looking in from an angle like this. But that's sort of what we do with the sofa here, just moving it round, you know, as we need to. And you know, you'll see in other videos where I'm assembling and reviewing cockpits, this isn't in shot at all, so I just push it out of the way over there. So that's what we do with this. So now let's grab we'll grab the GoPro now, and I'll take you on a little walk around each area and show you exactly what I've got. And I'm going to explain my sound system as well, because I do get a lot of questions about that, all my different amps. So let's get this turned on and take you on a little stroll. May as well start with my sort of back wall here, these shelves that I've recently put up that run full length for the back wall. There's not much on them sort of in the corner there, but that's intentional because it's space for more games and more retro collectibles. So on the top shelf, we've got some sort of Space Invader pictures, some plush toys, some there's another, what is it, a Sonic picture in the background there actually, that was done and signed by the original artist who drew Sonic back in the 90s. We got that from like a Play Expo event, I think it was like a $5 or something. Thought it was quite cool. You can just see that up there. And then we got a couple of boxes for different things. Obviously the Virtua Cop 2 box for the Saturn, this little Pinball Wizard pinball table, which is actually downstairs in like my utility rooms. Just as I walk in and out of there, just have a little go every now and then. It's actually quite a fun table for what it is. And then we've got the box to my Master System, Game Gear box, TV tuner box, and the box to the joystick I used to play on my ZX Spectrum with, which is an old classic V Arcade joystick. And then behind that, there is a Street Fighter 2 sort of picture in a frame as well. And then on this shelf here, this is mostly Spectrum games to start with, and a joystick actually, my old Quickshot Python 2. This needs a new micro switch, and it isn't a very good joystick anyway, to be honest. And then a whole load of more specky games. Then we get into a few Saturn games and some old school PC games. There's then a random shoebox that a lot of these cassettes were in up in my loft until recently. And then an old Toshiba Tecra 8100 laptop. This was my first ever PC, and I recently got that out of the loft and got that working again, so that was nice. A couple of Valentine's cards that are still up from Valentine's Day. And then we get into sort of Katie's, she's a big Nintendo and Zelda fan. So this is a lot of her stuff we're seeing. Now this actually belongs to my friend Justin, who often does the retro live streams with us. So we've got Game Boy Color, a couple of Game Boy SPs, some Tamagotchis, of course the recently released Game & Watch sort of collectibles from Nintendo, some Atari 2600 games, some Game Gear games. These are mine. SP games, some other Game Boy games there, Mega Drive games. These are, yeah, they're Game Gear games stacked up in the back there. And then we've got Master System games going into Mega Drive games, and then a couple of NES games at the back here. A lovely condition boxed Donkey Kong, and a pretty good condition Mario Brothers 3 there as well. Down here, PlayStation games, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, some Xbox games toward the end there, a couple of other random bits and shits. Some trainers, Mario trainers that I picked up for Katie that she just wanted to put in the collection, never to actually wear. A Mega Drive 1, again that's actually Katie's. I don't think we've even tested that yet. Some more Zelda collectible type stuff, and this is something that a lot of you will probably have never seen, is a Nintendo Zelda Game Watch. So not a Game and Watch like what you saw sort of a minute ago. This is actually, in fact the battery's gone flat in it, which is a shame. This seems to eat batteries even though we don't sort of sit here and play on it. But the game is actually surprisingly playable. It's from the sort of early 80s, and I picked it up off of a chap who had had it since he was a kid, and it is in lovely condition. The sounds and everything are just great, but I have to seem to put a battery in it probably every 6 months, even though it doesn't actually get played on that much. Then we've got Nintendo DS stuff, 3DS stuff, Wii U, Switch games, Wii games, GameCube games, N64 and SNES. You know, this isn't a massive collection compared to some of the really big retro channels sort of here on YouTube. But for me, all my old Mega Drive and Specky games are what I've had since I was a kid. So there's a lot of nostalgia there, you know, and a lot of good memories there as well. And a lot of Katie's stuff she's built up, you know, over her slightly shorter life than what mine is. There's quite a gap between us. But that's what we've got on the back wall there. This big plate here is to replace the one that's on the bottom there. I've got a new plate and a new arm that Bob from Race at Home has sent over. In fact, the arm's just in the gap at the back there. Slightly upgraded, so I'll get that on at some point as well. But we'll continue with the retro stuff. These TVs are going to flicker because they're at 50 Hertz. This is at 30 FPS with a shutter speed of 60, so it's just going to be the way it is, unfortunately. We have PS1, obviously, NES, and a rubber-keyed Specky. Now, everything you see here, Specky Plus 2A, Master System, N64, SNES, Mega Drive 2, Sega Saturn. Everything here works, everything is all plumbed in and ready to play, apart from the rubber-keyed Specky, because I play everything from this, which is my original Plus 2A from when I was a kid. So I've had that for like, you know, 30 years or so. But everything else here is plugged in. The NES is the only thing plugged into this little CRT. This CRT I actually picked up from a Play Expo in Margate for a £5, and I thought I can't not pick up a little Ferguson CRT when it's only £5. This 21-inch Panasonic, the badge is broken off over time, but that's what it was actually bought by my brother Rob when he first left school and was 16 years old. And this was our main TV in our bedroom that we had as kids, and it's still going strong. I say kids, we were like, he was 16, I was 17. It's still going strong today. So it's great to have that. That's like what we play, that's what everything else here is all plugged into. I've got like a SCART switcher box at the back here, and then this one also splits off, so there's another one plumbed in parallel with it, and we can switch between inputs. There's 4 inputs on there, and then we've got, I think we've got the N64 and the snares are both plugged in over RF into the TV, because I never had Nintendo as a kid. I had Master System, Mega Drive, Saturn, and of course my Specky here. So to me, having those plumbed in via the SCART was a priority, because that's what I have the most nostalgia for. This is actually, again, mine and my brother Rob's original Mega Drive 2 from when we were kids again. There's actually a hole in the back where I modified it to take a stereo sound output and put into a stereo that we had in the bedroom to give us some slightly better sound than what was coming out of the TV. And even this Saturn, we got one of these to replace the Mega Drive. We also had an Atari STE, sort of in between that. This isn't our original Saturn, but it is one I then picked up probably still 20 years ago from a cash converters here in the UK. I think I paid £20 for it. So even though it's not our original Saturn, you know, we actually sold that, and I think we then got a PS1. It's still something I've had for sort of 20 years or more, so some good nostalgia there for that. And again, this isn't my original one either. As a kid, I only ever borrowed one of these Master System ones from friends at different times. Katie picked this up for me for Christmas, you know, which is why I've got the box for it and that up there. But yeah, so my nostalgia is mostly for the Sega side of things and the Specky, and a little bit for the PS1. Like I say, we did have a PS1, I think, after we had our Saturn, and so things like Wipeout and Tomb Raider, Tempest 2000, lots of, and the Resident Evil games as well, lots of strong memories, you know, playing those on the PS1. Lots of my friends had NESs, or I say lots of them, a few of them had NESs, most of us had Sega stuff, most of us had Master System 1s or 2s actually. But a friend of mine, Colin Tucker, had one of these. I remember playing Duck Hunt and Mario round his on that. He also had a Commodore 16 plus 4, and I remember playing BMX Simulator on that. That's a really strong memory as well. But that's what we've got over here on sort of the retro side of things. In the drawers here, we've just got like cables and crap and controllers that need servicing and more cables and crap. And then this drawer is actually the controllers that I've serviced and that all work perfectly, all sort of neatly arranged just to be able to take them out and use them. And the bottom drawer is just full of random cables and other crap. Again, there's just some sort of paperwork and rubbish there. Obviously, this is my camera on a tripod that I use for shooting video. Behind that, there's a printer and a drawer with some other cables in, and a little external sound card and other bits and pieces, some tripods. This is my main desk where I do all my video editing, and also the X56 HOTAS. I've not done a review of that, but I might do. It's okay, but strongly priced, to summarise quickly. But yeah, this is where I do my main video editing up here. And the PC that runs this is down here. It's in an old, I mean, it's a decent PC. It's a 5800X and a RTX 3080. But it's in an old like micro ATX case just so that it fits underneath the desk there. And so to ensure good cooling, I actually leave the side of the PC like just dangling off so it doesn't overheat. Pretty because I can't be asked to like buy another case and make it fit and do it all neatly. So that's how that sits. This desk actually, talking about retro stuff and nostalgia, this desk was actually my sister's when she was a teenager, and somehow it ended up with me and has come from house to house to house, and I'm still using it today. So this must be over, what am I? This must be like 25, 30 years old, something ridiculous like that. But it's still the desk I use just because I haven't changed it. We'll look at the stereo stuff in a minute. But oh yes, so another retro console, the Atari 2600 here, and a boxed copy of Cubert in the background, running on what must be, I don't know, a 5 or 6 inch Sony portable CRT. This is actually a big battery pack at the back there. Actually, no, that might be the power supply. I think you can swap it out for a battery pack. The 2600 was a spare one that my Uncle Richard had and was given to me maybe a year or two ago by my cousin Justin Smith, who it ended up with him. He said, "Carl, I've got two, do you want one?" I said, "Yeah, well, I haven't got one." And I remember playing on one of these round my Uncle Richard, so it's nice to have that kind of passed down through the family. The TV I actually found in a skip, and it was going to be obviously thrown away, along with another half-decent CRT that I actually passed on to Katie's sister Charlie. So she's got that to plug her retro consoles into. But I thought this was just brilliant. I had to have it. It takes up no space. So, and you can genuinely, play it. Atari 2600 games are very low resolution. So playing them on a small screen like this actually looks surprisingly sharp and playable. So that's quite an amusing little point in the room there. Then we'll carry around here. This is an old 1080p 65-inch screen, so it's a decent sized screen, just relatively low res by today's standards. Currently, the GameCube is what's running through that at the moment, but the Switch is plugged in, the Wii U is plugged in. In the flap here, there's some more Wii's and some PlayStations as well. Everything here is all plugged into this TV. Down here, I've got a NES Edition SP. The box for it's at the back there. It's literally mint. Some guy bought this, used it for 2 weeks, put it back in its box, left it on a shelf for 15, 20 years, however old it actually is. Then we've got an original Game Boy. That's in lovely condition. This is a personal cassette player, personal stereo, that I bought when I was 17. And it takes a single AA battery and lasts 8 hours, which for back then was amazing technology, like just mind-blowing to have. And you had track, skip and all sorts on it, so that was super cool. I think it needs a belt because I can hear the motor spinning inside, but it doesn't actually play a tape. And annoyingly, I bought a belt and somehow I seem to have misplaced it. There's also my Game Gear here. Now I actually bought this, has it got batteries in it? Let's turn it on. I actually bought this, yeah it has, for my brother Tim when he was a kid. And they were relatively cheap at the time. And then later on in life, he gave it back to me because he didn't want it anymore. Obviously, it was old. We've got lemmings in there. Look at that terrible screen. And I was like, yeah, I'll take it. Obviously, I want to keep it in the collection. So that's my Game Gear. Listen to those sounds. Classic lemmings 8-bit sounds there. But that's what's tucked away in there. Some remote controls for the TVs on the sim rig. So that is pretty much all the retro stuff in the room covered, I think. Any questions about anything, feel free to ask. We may as well we'll look at the sound system next, because I get a lot of questions about this recently. I guess because this kind of corner of it is often in the videos when I'm sat at my desk here. So we've got this Onkyo AV receiver, and that is plumbed into the main PC and is set up in a 5.1 configuration. So these Yamo D365s, this is funny as well. For years I called these Jamo, and a lot of us in the UK probably did. It's only recently, like the last few years, that I found out it's pronounced Yamo because they're Danish. But Jamo, Yamo, whatever you want to call them. Pair of D365s at the front for the left and right. A centre 100 in the middle, and then the 265As are my rear left and right, and there's actually a Wharfdale sub which doesn't fit in with the retro theme at all, but I got it cheap. So there's a 5.1 configuration here. So when I'm sat at the sofa in the middle here, if I want to watch a film upstairs, because maybe Katie's doing something downstairs, or if I want to play like maybe a sofa-based, controller game, on the PC, again up here, I've got full 5.1 surround here for that through the 65-inch TV. Now the only ball ache I've got these days is since going triples, I don't have any more outputs on the graphics card to actually be able to run this TV from my main PC. So currently, I can't do what I just said. This TV is plugged into the retro consoles and this other little PC here. Now this has got a 1050 Ti in it and a Ryzen 1600 AF. So it's a low to medium spec PC. And I'll use this sometimes when I'm testing cockpits sat on the floor here. I'll be plugged into that because, as I just mentioned, there's no more graphics card outputs on that one to go into here. So what I actually need to do if I want to watch a film up here now is plumb this into this amplifier 5.1 so that I can watch films if I need to up here in surround sound. But then I've got the issue that if I want to play like a PC based first person shooter using keyboard and mouse, my sound is all in the wrong place. Previously, I would sit here and bring my wireless keyboard and mouse over with a board across my lap to do that. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet, whether I'm going to put another couple of speakers here and some rear ones like maybe on well, one over here sat on something or one over here, and have another smaller 5.1 set up just for first person shooters. Or if I'm going to, I don't know, maybe upgrade the graphics card in this or something and then plumb that into 5.1 into the Onkyo and make use of all these Yamos. I'm not really sure. It's not a priority because, to be honest, I have so little time to actually play games these days. It's ridiculous. This amplifier is just currently sat there doing nothing. It's just a spare. In fact, it may even have a dodgy volume knob on that. I can't quite remember. One of them has. I think it might be that one. But that's technically just a spare at the moment. I suppose retro stuff as well. We've got this little NES and Mario themed lamp that lasted about 6 months and then promptly died. So if you see one of these, they're not worth 20 quid or whatever it was I paid for them. They don't last. What else we got here? So yeah, that's the sound system I have up here. I'll talk about the sound system on my sim rig when we get to the sim rig. I've also got my Quest 2 sat in the corner there. That's always plugged in and charged. And my 2 Quest controllers. So I'll either push this sofa out the way and free up this space for VR play, or because it's wireless, I'll take it downstairs and do it in the front room because obviously the front room's a lot bigger. And the sofa downstairs is also on sliders, so that can be pushed out the way to give me an even bigger space down there as well. So, what have we covered? We've covered the stuff on the wall, the retro consoles and computers themselves, my PC, my audio system. Oh, I suppose I may as well show you, I've got all these old cassettes in here. Oh yeah, I haven't actually talked about the players, have I? All these old cassettes in here that I've had for like 25 years or more. I just never threw anything away, which is great. Yeah, in the stack here, as well as the Onkyo, we've got a Denon single cassette deck for playing all those old school tapes, which is just great. I love it. And then we've got a mini disc player. This was actually my brother Rob's, and it had been up in the loft for years. He was working abroad on and off, and then he went to uni, so was living in different places around the country. Just sat in our loft, and I actually only got it out a few weeks ago and plumbed it in, and it still works. So I've actually bought some new blank mini discs, and I'm going to back up some of my favourite tapes onto mini disc, just because I can really, and because it's fun. And don't judge me on these old school cassettes here. I actually don't know where this Jennifer Lopez single came from. It must have been like an old girlfriend at the time, because I certainly wouldn't have bought it. I did, however, definitely buy the Out Here Brothers Boom Boom Boom. Remember, I was 15 when this came out, so don't judge me on my musical flavour. And Baby Didn't Be a Fantasy, Stardust, I definitely bought those. And also, there's this excellent Snap album, which just sounds so cool. In fact, I was playing this the other day, and a couple of the tracks in here really sound like they could be music from Streets of Rage on the Mega Drive. They're just like, they're sort of the same time period, I guess, early 90s. But yeah, they sounded super similar to something you would hear on there. But yes, I think that is the sound system done now. Retro stuff done, that's all done. So most of you, I won't go into huge depth about the sim rig because most of you know exactly what I've got here. But for new viewers, we've got triple 55-inch LG OLED C1s running 120 Hz at 1440p per screen. They are 4K displays, but my graphics card will not run them well at 4K, so I run them at 1440p. I've then got a Fanatec DD1, a couple of steering wheels, one of the steering wheels on the floor there. This is obviously the Turtle Beach Velocity 1 yoke and throttle quadrant, which I'm massively unimpressed with. See my review on that if you're interested. We've got a Fanatec shifter, Fanatec V3 pedals down there. This is a GT Amiga Prime cockpit and seat. We've got the HE handbrake. What else have we got? Wind sim from Sim Racing Studio with the left and right wind curving as you corner. We've got a 5DOF PT actuator motion system here. So we've got an actuator on each corner. We've got a traction loss actuator and a surge actuator underneath there. So the bottom half that you see here that's white and red, that is the lowrider made here in the UK from Race at Home. And the PT actuator, vertical actuators, just come as a separate kit, or you can buy the whole lot together should you want to. Again, see the Race at Home website for that. I've got the bezel-free kits on the displays here, and the way the light hits them now, they look obviously awful, but if you've seen some of my gameplay videos, they actually work really quite well in the flesh. And then I built this sort of enclosure to put it in, because having like the wall behind you, and a window in my case, really takes you out of being in the sim. If you put a roof or any sort of covering across the top of your monitors, all you're seeing around you is the sim world that you're in. You know, almost like a cheap virtual reality, well, it's not even cheap, but a lesser virtual reality style setup. It's definitely far from cheap because the screens are not cheap. I've then got a tablet here that I used to run as a digital dashboard, but for games that properly support triples, you don't need to do that with screens this size, because your dashboard that's in the car will actually be on display in the center screen. Now, Dirt Rally doesn't support triples, so I still use that for Dirt Rally as well. And my yoke mount here just quick releases using a couple of these handles here and lifts off and out and sits on the side there. So that can be swapped over very, very quickly, less than sort of 20 seconds to get back to sim racing and pop a steering wheel back on. Around the side here, we've got another amplifier, and that amplifier is just a stereo amplifier, and that runs these two Yarmo Gale Force 25s in stereo for my sim rig. So that's where, you know, sim racing sounds come from and flight sim sounds come from, unless I'm in VR, in which case the sounds come out of the Quest 2's headset. The big white unit underneath is the servo drivers that control all the motion system. And there's a Thanos controller on the front of that as well. And as I mentioned earlier, got a new base plate to fit to that as well. I don't think there's anything else on the sim rig to talk about. We'll talk about steering wheel, pedals, shifter, handbrake, wind sim, motion, the rig itself, GT Amiga Prime. If anyone wants any of this stuff, I do have discount codes and affiliate links in the description. Not for my retro stuff, but for my sim racing stuff, this is. So that's the sim rig. Is there anything else that I haven't spoke about? Sound system, little PC over there, that display and consoles, Quest 2, Atari 2600 and little Sony setup, main PC, HOTAS, everything in this corner, the retro consoles. I think that's pretty much everything in my games room. This is my cat. So we get a close up of my cat, Ori. You want to say hello, Ori? She's brought up a toy for us to play with. If anyone likes cats, she's quite a fun cat. Although right now she just wants to sit here with her arse pointing at me, don't you? But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. That's, you know, this is sort of the layout of the room from this corner as I come up my stairs. Yeah, it's a reasonable sized space for having these few bits and bobs in. So let's get off of this GoPro now and come back to the main camera over there. So I think I've covered everything in my room. If anyone has any questions about anything, you know, or any memories to share about the retro stuff that I've got here, then, you know, stick them in the comments, because, you know, retro gaming is one of my other big hobbies, and some of you will know I've got a small retro channel that I started a couple of weeks ago as well, where we just sit there, me and a mate, me and the missus, and we just play some of these retro games, you know, live. So if you fancy joining us for that, in fact, I'll put a link in the description to my retro channel as well. But yeah, hopefully that answers everyone's questions about the sound system in here and what I use everything for, and all the little things you see in the background every now and then that you've all been curious about. And like I say, I'd love to hear your stories as well about retro stuff, or old, you know, old late 80s, early 90s Jamo speakers. You know, that for me, the memory of these Jamos or Yamos, I used to go around a friend's house a couple of doors up from me when I was a kid, and like their parents had a pair in the front room, and as a kid, like they were almost as tall as me, so I was just blown away by the size of them, and I always wanted a pair. So then, you know, later in life, you know, the memory came back. Maybe I stumbled across them on eBay or something like that, and I was like, I must get some of these speakers now. So that's what I did. I got one pair, and then I got another pair, and then I got another pair, and there's actually another pair of Gale Force 25s at my workshop as well. So yeah, I got a little bit carried away with buying Jamos or Yamos. And I remember them from fairgrounds as well. When the fair used to come to town, you'd often see the bigger ones on like the Waltzer and things like that, with them playing some happy hardcore out of them or whatever it was, you know, back in the late 80s, early 90s. So some really strong nostalgic memories for those speakers. Anyway, that's enough of me probably waffling on for a half hour or so. I hope you've seen everything you need to see. Any questions, put them in the comments. I do love to chat about, you know, my hobbies and all these little bits and bobs. So thank you very much for watching, and take it easy.